when are we gonna, somebody's gonna, there's gonna be a consequence for this kind of behavior. And as you said, it's always driven by, so much of it's driven by money. And I know enough about money to know the dangers of money and to say, this ain't it. This isn't how, I mean, you have to respect the power of money. Money can get a lot of good things done, but money is like it's like driving a really powerful tank. You can use it to break through barriers, or you can kill people with it, and it depends on who's driving. And so, so Dr. West, I know you are a busy man and you are on the campaign trail, so I'm not going to take much more of your time, but I want to ask you a question. Specifically in terms of reparations. I'd love to get let everybody hear your perspective on what you think reparations should and would look like. If you've thought about that with your campaign, and just a framework, so that as we move forward, we'd be able to say, okay, this is what we're looking for. Because you know how it is in politics. Eventually, if we make them submit to giving something, they're gonna start off by offering us something silly. A bag of potato chips and a hot dog, and So what would you say reparations should look like, Dr. West?
Yes. Well, one is we have to begin with the notion that no amount of money could ever repay what Black people have been through in 400 years, beginning with the bones on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. So that this is not a quid pro quo exchange kind of situation. We're talking about trying to get as much justice based on truth as we can, but the level of barbarity and bestiality and criminality visited upon Black people can never begin to be repaid. So we had to just be clear about that. So then you say, okay, now given that, how do we proceed? And you got slavery, you got neo-slavery with Jim and Jane Crow and American terrorism and lynching. Then you got Jim Crow Jr., which is now de facto segregation, with discrimination still taking place in a variety of different ways. It might not be legalized, but people have a way of getting in and outside of the law, under and above the law. So that the reparations is not just about barbaric slavery, but it's about the subsequent forms of bondage that have continued. The aftermath of slavery, as people would put it. Now, given that, and again, I follow my dear brother Doherty and others. They come up with 258,000 for each descendant of the dignified Africans who were enslaved. That strikes me as a reasonable starting point. A reasonable starting point. But then we've got to make sure we have a strong enough culture and infrastructure in place that the money that is given is not simply just recycled and recirculated right into the same corrupt system that has been exploiting Black people and poor people and working people all these years. So that there has to be some kind of massive transfer of wealth. There's no doubt about that. And I believe in just redistribution of wealth downward for citizens, no matter what color they are. I believe in free education. I believe housing ought to be a right. Healthcare ought to be a right. Safe communities ought to be a right. And that's true no matter what color you are, just a citizen in the American empire. But when we talk about reparations, that has to do with Black people, specifically Black folk, who just became citizens in 1964 and have still had to deal with mass incarceration, police brutalization, police murder, still have to deal with vicious images that circulate and therefore affect the hearts and minds and souls of Black people.